Fine. Well, firstly, thank you to API New Zealand to inviting me to speak at this period of time. What I'm about to talk about, I think, is very important for the industry, and I also like to thank the people I work for, which is UMF Honey Association Executive, and their support in doing this project and for the work that we do collaboratively. So a big thank you for this opportunity. Protecting the term Manuka honey. It is the term Manuka honey. So what's the key principle? The key principle we want to talk about is that, one, that it is Manuka, and two, that it is from New Zealand. So we're talking about a certification mark or a protection of the term under those two key principles, and it's open for anyone in New Zealand to be able to then use it and apply it. So it creates a level playing field. So it's protecting the term, and the only key point behind it is, one, it's Manuka, and two, it comes from New Zealand. Who's managing the project? Well, there's a team behind it. One of them is Peter Luxton, who's here. And if you've got any questions about, ask Peter as he goes along his day. Another person's Victor Goldsmith, Ian Fletcher, obviously myself, and there's a bit of a research team behind it, including Jonathan Stevens. And of course, there was a guy called John Hill who's done some of the financial modelling behind it, and I thank them all for their support and time. Initially, this has been funded by the UMF. And it was started off as an initiative because we realised in August 2015, if we didn't do it now, it was never going to happen. And there's the dangers of not protecting the term. And what we want to do is achieve it just like champagne, just like palms and cheese, all those other certification marks, that you can be very proud of that term and drive it forward in your marketing positions. So that's what we're about. It's about giving you opportunity, and it's not about telling you what to do, how to use your mark, how to design it. This is about enhancement. So the big question, why protect it? And the first one, and it's not for me to talk about, is Manuka is a Māori word. You've got people here at the conference, Victor Goldsmith, Rob Murray, Bobby Leaf. If you want to know about that, talk to them in terms of why it's important in terms of a Māori word. The second one is obviously the consumer. For all the years behind this, the consumer actually knows the term Manuka honey comes from New Zealand. That's what we're trying to support, is protecting the consumer, because they do have rights and they need to get product that is obviously true to label. The second one, and this is more of a national type thing or international thing, is that world development of the world honey, when developing countries want to advance their position, they put money into those countries to help advance them, using honey as a vehicle to sell and go from developing countries to developed countries. So if we start to play with common names and everyone calls it Manuka or everyone doesn't respect common names, we lose that opportunity at an international base to advance the position of developing countries. And that actually is quite important, particularly when you go to apiculture, overseas conferences, and that it is a key part of those conferences of those developing countries enhancing. It's important. The research, believe it or not, was your investment, your time, your money that actually created the research backdrop that made this honey famous. It was yours. It was your work. It was the work of previous national bodies that actually made it happen, primarily through Peter Molland, more contemporary work through the various laboratories at the moment. But it was that work that you funded that created the opportunity behind this honey. That's really important. And the other one, quite dear to should be a lot of people, it's about your story. This has been about your story. We've had the joy of filming various people that were old beekeepers of the past, Terry Gavins, John Bassett and co. Their story is important. Their story is in the backdrop of saying this is Manuka. And let's not throw that story and that history of New Zealand beekeeping away by bastardising the term. So there are some of the value-based propositions behind it. However, you could say, well, is that really worth the effort? You know, good stories, nice international stuff, but what does it really mean to me, back pocket stuff? Because at the end of the day, it's about making money. It's about profit. Without profit, we can't advance the industry. Without profit, you can't pay for bee health. Without profit, we don't advance. So at the end of the day, it is about ensuring you maintain your margins in a marketplace that you have built up over time. And that's your right, and that's important for this industry to grow. Yes, profit is essential. So this is a slide that I stole from John Hill. Anyone wants to question it, go and beat him up afterwards. But the government said by the year 2028, you are going to get this industry to $1.2 billion. How are you going to do it? You are going to increase the products, the average value, by 7%, and you increase production accordingly by 6%. So what happens if the rest of the world takes that opportunity away from you? What does it mean that every other country turns around and starts calling it the term Manuka honey? Well, you're not going to achieve that goal. And from John's calculations, if you drop it down by 25%, it's a significant loss. It's a major loss to your economy, your profit, your position, your story. So at the end of the day, what's very, very important that you're able to protect that core position. If you look at the research that's been done by NZTE the other week, actually, if you look at the work done by MB and so forth, it says the driving factor behind the consumer's purchasing power is through the word Manuka honey. If you lose that, you lose opportunity. You have to market your way out of it. You have to fight your way out of it. Very difficult in a competitive market. Extremely difficult. So it is essential that, and the best return is by protecting that term, Manuka honey, for all of New Zealand. If you want to, we're going to be short of time, so if you want to ask any questions on the sums, talk to John Hill. Thank you for his work. So here's the market reality. In 2005, the Australians turned around and said, look, what we're going to do is we're going to market and we're going to develop our own story behind our honeys. So they put a lot of effort into it, and they wanted to advance past the $5 a kilo because they're an importing country, and the value of their honey bulk was the same value of their importing price, except for the odd honey. So that was there. In 2005, they went ahead and did it, and sadly, it actually failed. And so they went on a bit of a journey and said, okay, we're going to go and start to apply the term Manuka honey to their products. Not only in 2005 did that fail and they started to apply Manuka honey to their products, the term Manuka honey to their products, the rest of the world has started on that journey as well. And if you look at those flags, I've got emails from those countries saying, where do we get the seeds? Where do we plant? How can I take this Manuka honey? Spain, Portugal, Argentina. So a lot of countries are saying, oh, here's an opportunity. Let's plant this plant. Let's take it. Let's move it forward. That's the competitive environment we're heading into that's really advancing on us. So the question is, this is not an anti-Australian story.
I'm putting up a retaining wall. Do it yourself? No, I'm going to get some broken. Oh, come on, mate, do it yourself. She's a pretty big job. Oh, you'll be right. You reckon? We can knock it over in half a day. Yeah, get a couple mates around. Hey, Josie! Huh? Give us a hammer for job Saturday. Mate, you're dreaming. Aussies. Oh, no surprises there.
DIY. It's in our DNA.
So, thank you, Mitre 10. This isn't an anti-Australian story. I had the joy of once being to Tasmania, seeing the Leatherwood story. They have good honeys, they have a great opportunity. Just name it slightly differently and do your own journey. That's important. So I'm going to use an Australian example here, but let's give them the respect and the due they deserve. One of the problems we face at the moment in Australia, they're saying, well, not only Leptospermum scoparium, but every other Leptospermum we're going to call Manuka. That is quite a problem. The codex says you can only label a honey to its botanical origin, not a range of species. So it itself is misleading. So for them to call Manuka across a range of species is misleading and deceptive, is in breach of codex, matter of interest. The monofloral definition is about half what the New Zealand MPI says what is Manuka. The multifloral definition, with respect, is a complete joke. They say anything less than a monofloral can be called Manuka. So if you follow the logic there, anything less than a monofloral can be called multifloral. So every honey in Australia could be called Manuka by the definition they've actually put out, which is not good. Then you've got claims. We're under you can argue whether it's good or bad, but a fairly strong regime, and it needed to tighten up on what we could actually say behind our honeys. And Australia has the advantage, or disadvantage in some parts, or heating their honey. They can actually, because they're a hot climate, they can have above 40 HMF and get away with it. So that's the environment we're up against by them using the term Manuka honey. So the big question is, and it keeps on being raised to us, well, is there a difference? Is there a difference between a New Zealand honey, Leptospermum scoparium, and Australian honey, Leptospermum scoparium? And we ask ourselves that question, and we're in Blenheim. And we're in Blenheim with one of the great wine industries of the world. And I know from personal experience that a Sauvignon Blanc here tastes completely different than a Sauvignon Blanc anywhere else in New Zealand or the world. That is a fact. And I was talking to Peter Luxton, and I forget these words wrong, please correct me, about a winery here which has got a roadway going up to the house there, and in that roadway it splits between two sides, and one side of it's two different soils. And of those two different soils, they planted the same vines, they produce totally different flavours of wines, totally different aromatics. So New Zealand Manuka, because of its culture, because of our climate, because of the people behind it, is a totally different honey than what is produced anywhere else in the world. And it's important that we recognise that in our labelling and our descriptor, immediately for the consumer to have confidence and say, that's I know exactly where that's come from, as much as champagne or anything else. So what do we do about it? Well, in 2015, we filed a whole pile of marks in different countries. And what we did is turned around and said, we will put certification marks in New Zealand, UK, China, and Australia, and USA, and the EU. We've had, in this chart, a very significant win in the UK that basically said, yes, we accept your filing, and we accept it under the following words, and I think the words are quite wonderful. It says, Manuka is a Māori word. So here from an overseas regulatory authority has recognised a New Zealand Indigenous language. 2, it said that it's a badge of origin from New Zealand. And 3, if I get this correct, it said it would be disingenuous or wrong, I forget the correct word, for anyone else to use it. So that's a quite powerful statement. So we've got 3 months to fight for any objections. And once that's completed, we can then say that only New Zealand Manuka honey can be sold with Manuka honey in the UK, based on those terms. And I think that is something positive for an industry to be proud about. So our objective is to do exactly the same in each of the other territories. Each of the other territories have different nuances and how they handle the regulations and how they interplay, but that's basically it. So that's the thing. Now, you can ask yourself, well, listen, all well and good, but what happens if someone comes up with a legal challenge? What happens, when is this going to end? You know, someone could challenge you again and challenge you again. 3 companies could challenge you and you've got a massive legal bill fight. Well, what we've done with good wisdom is put an insurance package in place. We went and saw Lloyd's of London and said, look, once granted, can we get protection? What would it cost? And the answer was, yes, we'll protect you. Yes, the cost is very reasonable. It doesn't escalate as we add territories. So we have an end game. We've got the ability to turn around and protect it and actually defend it. So that is quite significant in my mind to say we have a journey to go through to finalise it and it's completed. So that is a significant asset for the New Zealand industry in my mind. So the guardianship we're working through at the moment, but if you can read from the above, we have won this because Manuka is a Māori word. We've won this because it's a badge of origin from New Zealand, so the ownership needs to be in the right place. And the ownership has to be within some form of trust, recognising the principles of the treaty that we all signed in partnership, and recognising that we can't remove further rights of how IP is developed within New Zealand. So we're just working through that at the moment, hopefully very quickly.
He kaimahi pī Māori no te hiko teika e karanga atu ana ki ngā kaimahi pī Māori. Kia whakakutahi mai ki te kimi huarahi e tia ki nā i te kupu Manuka i Tarawāhi. He kara ngā whai muri te tono a te uepu miere UMF, kia whai mana waitohu te kupu nei, ki Aotearoa anahenahe nei.
Miere Manuka, he rānai piriona tāra te wāriu. Koira te take kua huri te uepu UMFH ki te tiaki i tana kōhua miere.
Overseas markets have said, okay, can we copycat this? Well, no, you can't. Can we try and do what you're doing? Well, yes, you can, but please don't use these words because the consumer says this comes from New Zealand.
Hei tā Rob Murray no te kamupene o Tai Toke Rauhani, kua tai te wā kia whakakotahi mai nā kaimahi hanipi Māori kia whai mana ake te tono.
But I still think Māori have got to have a big input into the word Manuka. So with the UMF and Māori working together, I think we could sort of try and work it to market that product.
I roto noa i te rua tau kua tipu te ao mahi mere mā te whātekau mā whitu pai heneti, nā te kaha mina mai o nā kaiwhakanao o tā wāhi. Anō mohua nei ka whai kremea ahi treiria ki te rākau Manuka.
Whether it came from there or not is not the issue. The issue is this, these words, this research, this marketing position came from New Zealand. And that for me is the key issue. The consumer expects that and we need to protect that. Same as Scottish whisky, French champagne. I know I can take a couple of vines, plant in my backyard. I can't call it French champagne.
Hei tā Rawcliffe kei te tōmuri rawa Aotearoa i runga i tēnei take nui. Engari ki te whai mana tā rātau tono, he nui noa atu nā hua ka tuwhera mo te ao mahi mere i Aotearoa.
And if we get this right, we have the ability to grow not only Manuka, but Kānuka and Rerera, all these wonderful monofloral plants that do produce nectar, that do produce honeys. And we have a massive industry to protect and hold and value. And that for me is the joy of this journey.
He haerena kua roa e whakaaroti ana. I tukua te tono nei ki nā uni ana mahi arehe ko tahi tau ki muri. Lynette Amoroa, te kāia.
The reason why I played that is there's been a fair amount of media and every single word or every single message that was put out on that has not changed since we first started. And it says to me, are you on the right track? Have we had to adjust anything? Are the principles sound? Yes, they are. That was going to be the last word, but here is the last word. Yesterday we actually had a meeting with the Honourable Shane Jones. We obviously have to seek government support for our objective and a strategy. I believe that was done. We have asked that we have a working group with the various stakeholders to ensure that we progress through this, and we've been asked to put forward an application on the Provincial Growth Fund. So, in short, that's what we've been trying to achieve. I think we've achieved a lot of good milestones. We have the support and principle that this is a good idea from the government and we're moving forward. It's as simple as that. That's it.